Hello and welcome to this week's Beginner's Guide. This week we will be talking about the Autonom NPC faction by discussing all of the units, mods, and the Doctrine which can be bought at the Autonom dwelling. The first unit we're going to talk about, the Autonom Sentinel, is a pretty useful tier 1 unit. Right from the beginning of the game, he has some pretty cool effects down here. I really like having superior overwatch combined with this omnidirectional camera. Being able to overwatch in all directions means that you can defend from the top of the map, the left side of the map, the right side of the map, the bottom of the map, all those directions in one go. If people close the distance with him, he only has 30 HP and 2 armor, so it's somewhat easy to kill him off, pretty easy, but closing that gap shouldn't be too easy to do if he's got other units in the stack that that can hold the enemy in place, that can kind of tank some shots or distract them, maybe put some debuffs on them. I do really like this little secondary ability. It is a full action, so you need all 3 of your action points to use it, but increasing your accuracy and hit chance it's always nice. Did want to mention that he has all-around awareness, which means he can't be flanked. All of the Autonom units have that, but with this one, I think it makes it a little bit easier to move him forward into places where other units might get flanked, and then you can just put him in his superior overwatch and take on the enemies that come from all the different directions. The synthesis have a nice tech that resurrect units once they die, so maybe you put this on this guy, he dies, he comes back, he does some extra fighting for you. When he gets to prime ranked, he gets range, which increases your range attacks by 1 tile, which would make this repeating attack pretty deadly. The only thing that I think could make this unit slightly better is if this was more like a sniper, but you might get more damage overall with these repeating attacks. I think if you get this unit really close to the enemy and put him in Overwatch and get all 3 repeating attacks, that would probably be more potential damage than if they balance this for a sniper rifle. But I'm not terribly sure about that. The next unit we're going to talk about is the Autonom Golem, which I think is a pretty fun unit. I really like the attacks, the name of the attacks, Tactical Face and Bomb, because they're acronyms. Face stands for Forcefully Amplified Contact Explosive, and Bomb is Body Originating Mass Blast. And I'm a big fan of those silly little jokes. I think a lot of people have probably missed this. They just thought, oh, Tactical Phase, Bomb. I guess this is going to melee people in the face, and this is like an AoE. And they don't actually look any further than that. But yeah, there's stuff like this all throughout the game. This unit is pretty tanky compared to the last one. He has 4 whole armor and 40 HP. 40 HP isn't too impressive, but the fact that he has 4 armor and this defense mode increases that by another 2 points means that he's very tanky compared to other tier 2 units. Of course, he doesn't have any shields, so if you're facing off against something with psychic damage, they'll be able to go right around that. Fortunately, all these robots are a little bit resistant to psychic damage. This is a repeating attack. It's a pretty typical one. It staggers, bypasses shields. This attack, however, is not melee. Even though it's right up next to the enemy, it doesn't bypass shields like the Tactical Face attack. It does have to deal with shields. It kind of is like a ranged attack that AoEs everybody around it, including friendly units. So you do have to be pretty careful with this one. I think the Golem, kind of like the Sentinel, is a little bit more useful if you rush him forward into the enemy line and are okay with losing a Golem here and there. This has a cooldown of 2 turns, so keep that in mind. You can't just bomb every turn. That would be, I guess, kind of overpowered if you put the right mods on here to regenerate health. When he gets to prime ranked, he gets Shrug Off, which I believe gives you extra resistance to status effects. It's not my favorite. It's okay. I think probably better against other players, but I don't know. It's one of my least favorite ones when I'm playing against the AI. The next unit we're going to talk about is the Autonom monitor, which is actually very similar to the Sentinel. They both have this defense laser. The Sentinel has superior overwatch, which gives it slightly more damage if you put this unit in overwatch, and this unit doesn't have overwatch, so yeah, I guess that makes sense. But apart from that, everything else is the same. It's 75% accuracy, 8 damage at a range of 7. He has the same HP, 30 HP. The defense values are pretty much the same. 1 armor and 1 shields is basically the same as 2 armor. This unit has slightly more defense against psychic attacks and slightly less defense against melee, which makes sense because he's flying, which means he's gonna have to deal with less melee attacks in general. When he gets to prime rank, he gets an extra range, which is the same as the Sentinel. So yeah, another way that they're very, very similar. What really sets out this unit as something different from the rest are its little secondary abilities. It has 2 support abilities, which are full actions. This initialized connections one is really useful. This unit and the tier 4, what's it called? Network controller, they both can network your units essentially. Network to level 1 here, using that ability. This one will take it to level 2. And if I had a 3rd unit with that ability, let's say I had a second one of these or a second monitor, then I could take this up to level 3 to get some really, really nice bonuses. Level 3 gives you plus 20% damage and an extra range on all of your ranged attacks. That's always useful if you can increase your range. It's, yeah, basically means you get to do damage to enemies that may or may not be able to attack back. The other support ability, the Transmit Repair Nanites, heals everybody 5 health per network level. So if you've got a lot of networking, this all of a sudden becomes pretty useful. To say you had a level 3, that's 15 HP healed every time you use this. It only has a cooldown of 1 turn, so you can't do it every turn, but you can do it fairly frequently to keep your units alive. The next unit we're going to talk about is the Autonom Justicar, which is a pretty cool long-range attacker. This Punisher missile has a cooldown of 1 turn, which means you can do a pretty awesome AoE every other turn. And if you increase your range with the networked thing, then what's it called? The networked ability over here. Yeah, if you get this up to rank 3, you can increase your range, which is pretty special. Not a lot of units that have this AoE can increase their range through things like that ability or the prime rank. This guy, when he reaches prime rank, gets an increase on his range. Probably going to be a little bit more useful in this unit, given that he can only do this AoE. Usually that's your secondary attack and you have a primary attack. This guy doesn't really have a primary attack. He has something that makes it so that units are a little bit easier to hit and they have less resistance. It's kind of like the targeting thing that the Vanguard Owls have, which make it easier to hit your target. But this one, it makes it so that when your attacks hit the target, they do more. Having less damage resistance is a pretty useful malice to put on your enemy. And at a range of 9 means, yeah, if you increase your range using this and the other thing, that can go all the way up to 11, just like this. And when you're doing an AoE, that 11 or the 9 that it has there, that's just the center of the circle. You can really hit 10 tiles away with an AoE like this. He has 60 HP. That's pretty normal for I think a tier 3 unit. Yeah, you're tier 3, aren't you? Where does it say that? Yeah, tier 3. Your tier 3 unit having 60 HP is pretty normal for a tier 3 unit. He has a decent amount of defense for a backline guy, 2 armor and 2 shields. will keep him alive quite a bit longer than other dudes that you don't really engage in the fight, but at the same time, he's not designed to get up in people's faces. This missile attack can be used from really, really far away. I recommend you keep him pretty far back. The last unit we're going to talk about is the Autonom network controller. He has a lot of very, very cool skills that do some special things. The initialize connections is the same as the initialize connections skill that the monitor gets. And I think it's something that I'd recommend using pretty early on in a fight, just so that you don't have to choose between using this skill and doing damage with this unit. The very first thing I would do in any combat is contact technical support, because it has a cooldown of 3 turns, and the earlier you summon in a unit, the better. So yeah, you might as well just get somebody like this out here to assist you in the fight as soon as possible. These other abilities are just used once per battle, so yeah, you want to use this early on, and then you don't have to worry about using it again, and probably save the shield protection for when your units are in a lot of danger. When you've got multiple units in quite a bit of danger, this could probably save a unit or two. But if you've got a choice between attacking a unit and shielding everybody else, it might be better to actually kill off a unit using your network controller's repeating attack. It's a pretty strong attack. It does 14 damage. That's a little bit more than the Sentinel and the what's it called? The monitor. They have a thing that does thermal damage, and it is also this guy's attack, the laser particle beam. It's more accurate and has a bigger range. If you combine that with the what's it called? The level 3 networked, and when this guy gets to his prime rank, he gets increased range. When you combine all of that, you get a massive attack from far away. I don't think there are very many units that get repeating attacks at that kind of range. He can hit 11 tiles away with a repeating attack. He may be actually the only unit that can do that. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's another one that I haven't seen in game. I like this defense mode, shields up. It's not the worst. It could probably keep this unit alive in certain situations, make it harder for people to shoot him. But I think given all these other abilities, especially this attack, it's probably better to go on the offense than to use this unit defensively. There aren't a lot of automaton units that are defensively focused. They seem to be pretty good at striking first and striking hard. That's what this unit does really well, and that basically means in these kinds of stacks you need somebody like a Golem to hold the enemy in place. The Golem probably isn't that useful in non-auto non-stacks, but when you combine it with all these like long-range attacks, I think just having somebody to hold them in place is quite valuable. Okay, in order to explain the mods that you can get for the Autonom, I have taken the units that I had in the previous fight, and I put the mods that they can apply to themselves from the dwelling. This one, you can only have these 2, and this unit can only have these 3. There was a mod which I couldn't apply to any of them, which is actually pretty special. I've looked at all of the other NPC factions, and from what I remember, there was nothing like this one where you can't actually apply it to the NPC faction units, but it allows units that aren't NPC faction units to get some of the benefits that are usually reserved for just the faction units. Being able to turn your cyborg units into something that's networked means they can get the benefit from the monitors initialized connections and the network controllers initialized connections. But not a lot of units are cyborgs. There's only a handful that this could apply to. There's a couple secret tech units, like this Echo Walker, and who else? this Lightbringer, they're cyborgs and they're secret class units, so like pretty much any race can hypothetically have access to it, but people like the Assembly, they have more access to it because they have a lot of cyborg units just as a base unit. The NPC faction, the Paragon, also has cyborg units, so if you got Paragon and Autonom, you can combine that to get a pretty nice, powerful combination. And yeah, I think we're ready to jump back into combat here to kind of show off a little bit of the differences between each of the mods. Let's look at the mining laser upgrade first. I think he's got it because he's got a big, massive laser attack. And you do, and you do. This guy, he doesn't have it because he doesn't have a laser attack. He's only got the explosive one. So yeah, the mining laser upgrade is pretty cool. Being able to remove armor is something that is really, really powerful at all stages of the game. Especially from really, really far away. Armor can be bypassed with psychic attacks, but not everybody can shoot from the other side of the map. These guys, the Autonom, they're pretty good at staying far away and removing armor using this mod as a result. There's, you know, the biological thing that has a similar effect, but I like this because it applies to laser mods, which I think are generally just they work from a further range. So yeah, just having that plus a little bit extra damage, pretty good, especially on certain units. The next mod is the self-repair systems, which is so good. I love anything that regenerates health. It's less useful in this guy because he only has 30 HP, but if you want to apply it to other mechanical units that aren't faction units, that say have 60 base HP, then they're going to be able to regenerate 20% of that every turn, as well as being able just to heal up to max health at the beginning of every strategic turn. That's pretty minor compared to just being able to heal 20% every turn. The extra armor, pretty nice, I guess. It's okay, but not nearly as good as yeah, just being able to heal that much every turn. There's some others that got nerfed down to, I think, 15% heals, and this is one of the few that's, I think, still at 20%. I think it started at 20%. It could have been 25, and they nerfed this one down with the others. I wasn't really playing around with it when this game first came out. I didn't really see the Autonoms that much. I got a lot of like growth in Scyfish in my first few playthroughs. And the next mod is Immolation Matrix. I think that's also on this guy. Yep, he's got this, which means you get to either immolate your target or make them burn for 3 turns. I believe if you miss, the burning applies for 3 turns as well. I don't remember the exact effects, but immolate is pretty awesome, and burning isn't too bad either. I think burning makes it so that they take damage over time. Immolate may reduce their accuracy. Let's just check that really quickly. Burning, they're easier to hit. Okay, that's awesome. I love that. Yeah, and they're also easier to hit with this, so it's a really good mod. I think that, you know, making targets easier to hit, especially if you're far away, which these guys specialize at being far away and shooting far away. Yeah, it seems like a nice little mod to throw on your guys. 20% extra damage, starting to get pretty cool, pretty useful, but yeah, I don't know. Those effects are always less important to me. The increased damage is always less important to me than the status effects, or, you know, even increasing your defenses, I think, is more valuable than increasing how much damage you can do by 20%. And the last one, the concussive ordnance, is something that the Golem and the Justicar, out of all these faction units, only those 2 have access to it because only those 2 have explosive attacks. This applies to the Punisher missile and makes it so that enemies can be concussed. I believe that means they're taken out of the combat, basically. They can't attack, at least. They may be able to move, but that's pretty important. And I believe that The concussion here, that only applies to when he's trying to bomb people. If you're using the tactical face, it might be explosive actually. It says forcibly applied contact explosive. Guess I can't really apply it to them, but yeah, it says right here there's a concussion 4 chance that that's gonna that they're gonna be concussed for 1 turn. So yeah, it does actually apply to both of these attacks, the primary one and the secondary one. Pretty useful. Alright, so the last thing we're going to talk about here is the Doctrine, which you can get for the Autonom faction, AI Factory Overseers, which gives you +2 production per worker in a production job, and you know, once you fill up all of the production jobs in a colony, that colony gains 10 production and 5 happiness, which is pretty awesome. It may seem kind of minor, just 2 extra production when a base job gives you 5, but that kind of stuff does add up a lot, and if you're stacking production bonuses, that can really help you build buildings really quickly and make units really quickly. And for that reason alone, I think this is the most useful NPC doctrine from all stages of the game, even in the very beginning to the late game, because at the very beginning of the game you're going to be needing to build both buildings and units, and in the late game you need to build units relatively quickly, and the best units you can make come from colonies. If you summon in things, they're not going to have as nearly as many little effects. Like you can boost your armor and or shields using exploited sectors, so yeah, this is just all around amazing. 5 happiness, pretty minor. A little bit extra production, 10 extra production is good. It might help you build a unit a little bit faster. It definitely moves you in the right direction. But yeah, I think just the 2 extra production per worker job is massive, and yeah, not to be overlooked. And yeah, that's everything I wanted to say on this NPC faction. We've covered all of the NPC factions on the channel so far, and I'm thinking that I'm not going to do a beginner's guide next week. I'd like to take a little bit of time to start reflecting on the subjects that I can cover in future videos, which means taking more time in between each one and actually researching it, making sure I'm getting the info right and I'm not rushing it out a video a week. If I'm going to be doing more guides, I want to make sure they're quality guides that are very helpful to people. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. I'll be probably posting about that on my Twitter, Instagram, all those fun things. You maybe join the Discord if you haven't already. And yeah, I think that's everything I wanted to talk about. Looking forward to the new DLC, Heriter. The Heriter class is something I really want to play around with in the Revelations DLC that's coming out mid-November. So yeah, we'll do a video on the new NPC faction, the Forgotten, when we get access to that, as well as some other little videos, maybe just like a update on the new patch, the new version of the game. But yeah, hope to see you then.